Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scene for Crimson Court, which is set in Monaco in the Renaissance time. Yeah. Um, Coming out of the Broken Back Donkey, Caroline Reed will wander along. She won't get the carriage this time. She's, paying a little extra bit of gold to wait. She trots along, going through the slums, and ends up along the docks very slowly, eventually making her way out, keeping the now maimed hand covered through the folds of her dress. It's very easy to do that, after all. You don't want everyone seeing a missing hand because some people might think you're a thief and it's not bitten off by a crazed vampire, but hey, semantics aside. Caroline moves very quietly, watching everyone pass by. A few dock hands actually stay along there. She avoids things. She avoids people. She watches the people go by, keeping a cloth over her mouth just in case any particular rancid smell. She again keeps a small hood over her head, not dressed to the nines because, well, that's just asking for trouble. However, once she spots any particular people's legs, she watches. She waits. Because, well, she doesn't feel like many normal people does, no. Because that will require a lot of work with only one hand. That can be quite difficult these nights. And she just seems to watch people, studying who could be the one that she could take home, and they'd never see home again.
And she is not the only one performing such a scan of the lives and times of those who make their work about the docks. Because so much as one might think it's one of those nice, simple jobs where one shows up, loads boats, goes home, it is not the case. There are many ships that come and go, many of which expect the cargo to be there and waiting, which means there is constantly at least some moderate activity around the docks, even at night. There are people watching the docks, watching the ships, making sure there's no shenanigans, no attempts to sneak aboard, no attempts to steal the cargo. There's prepping cargo, there's loading and unloading. It's just, there's always some measure of activity. And among other things, you've got all these big hardened workers. You've also got your urchins and whatnot, considering this is in fact the slums, scampering around, snatching what they can, maybe gaming around the water. Who knows, really? Probably have some kids trying inexpertly to fish with, sticks and a bit of line and maybe a hook they found somewhere at the edge of the water around the docks from where another line snapped. And we will do some fun things as she's watching, and there's some dirty kids scampering around doing their shit. There's some sitting at the edge. And we will see whether or not I managed to pull off some shenanigans. And I will let you roll Dex alertness as I do this.
What am I rolling?
Perception alertness.
Ooh. Nope. Actually, wait, I got one. But I don't, yeah, I got one.
Where are you rolling?
Oh, I rolled in general by mistake. Whoops.
Why you gotta be that guy?
Because I've been mistaken. I got 3.
Oh, you do. Notices some kid pulls up, like gets excited, kind of starts pulling on their line. Thinks they've got something going on. I mean, there's no telling how much a kid could get with a bit of garbage and a bullshit little attempt at a makeshift line. But this kid gets really excited and doesn't have any little friends around, is just doing his own little thing. And he actually edges closer and closer to the edge of the pier. And it is a very sudden and surprisingly quiet process as he's pulling and pulling. the line's waggling around like he's gotten something probably fairly sizable. And very, very suddenly, Caroline will see, of all things, what she swears to God for a moment is a hand stretch up out of the water, snatch this kid by the front of the shirt, and suddenly that kid is gone. There's not even much of a splash, really. It doesn't sound out over the creaks and the splashes of water against the hulls of the ships and whatnot. It's not a big, loud ordeal. The kid is just suddenly gone, and there's rippling water.
Does anyone else see this?
Oh,
Like, is there anyone else around? That is the important question.
I mean, there's plenty of dock hands, but they're not looking per se. They're not paying any real attention to these kids as they scuttle around. Besides, keeping a weather eye when they get too close to where the ships are actually bound up. This one wasn't particularly. He was off on an end where maybe little fishing skews are tied up and wasn't making any mischief. So you've got dock hands still wandering about. You've still got kids elsewhere, but this one kid was off by himself, and there's just no one else sitting back and taking in the sights like you are.
Caroline immediately clicks on her auspex, like, you know what I mean? And will stand up, very slowly, very delicately, keeping again that hidden hand folded in her dress as she's walking over very calmly, and will peer out, gazing down at the water very calmly, very slowly. Not getting too close now because fuck me, that's danger territory. But getting a better view essentially with her enhanced eyes.
Then I would say like whatever. I mean, how big's your aspects?
2.
Then yeah, I assume whatever disadvantage you get for it being dark would be countered out by your aspects.
I do have the concentration merit as well, which helps in that, I think, as well.
Yeah, go for it. Feel free to like roll to see if you can pinpoint anything else strange going on in the water.
Yeah, I will. I don't do so good. I think I don't do so good. I don't see anything.
Yep. You do not see the little trail of bubbles, and I will do a contested roll against myself on this because it's only fair. Here's me. Let me think. What would you say would be an average like strength roll for a child, really? Like 2, 3?
Yeah.
Oh, snap. So let's see. This is the part that really matters because she's been pulling this kid under. Let me pull up my merit roll fast so I remember how much it affects. Reduced by 1. We'll say like a pull of 3 for this kid. And then 4, 5, 6. For her. For the love of God. So she doesn't necessarily see anything initially, but I'll let you roll again at an even lower diff. Perception alertness.
That aspect bonus though as well.
Exactly.
The good thing I did, I got 2 successes. I'm assuming the diff is 4 now by this point.
Yeah. Just a bit further out. Again, there's a lot of ambient noise on the dock. There's yelling. There's stomping around on the boards as the dock, folk are working. There's the creaking of the ships. There's water lapping against the sides of those, against the docks themselves. There's kids, hollering over on the bank. But she manages to pinpoint as a small head pokes up out of the water a bit away from the docks and begins frantically swimming back towards the pier, kind of, choking and sputtering.
Across the opposite side now, just to be sure. So I'm
basically pulled out further away from the pier, like pulled out into the greater water, like probably out among the holes at this point, around where the ships are.
Oh boy, this is going to be an interesting thing. Caroline's going to look around quite quickly, seeing if anyone notices.
Let's see. Let's in all fairness. Fate diet?
Yeah, go high or low. Probably do high or low. Probably like low as being the worst option, I would imagine.
Yep. So I will say, essentially marking it high. Yeah. So someone shoots a glance over and yells at this kid. Like one of the dock hands is like, "What are you doing over there?" Starts yelling at him.
And I'm assuming the kid is responding like falling
Yeah,
off
the
the ground.
kid is like floundering and scrambling and coughing a lot because he did get pulled abruptly under. It's not like he got to take a breath, so he's struggling. Um, but probably like trying to strangled yell some sort of response.
And he's far out now in the water. Just so
Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah, far out. Okay. Oh, Jesus. Caroline's going to take a couple of measured steps along and begin to look for one of those fishing poles, essentially. Like basically strained looking, essentially, to try and maybe help get something that the child will be able to reach. Or actually will, begin to. Oh, I know what the Caroline's going to do. Caroline is going to begin to try call out to the child, and she's going to activate a button, Katie.
Is she?
Mm-hmm.
What's she gonna do?
Presents.
What's that do?
Gets people's attention so they're looking over at you.
Okay.
So she figures the more people that would notice her coming over, the more able-bodied seamen would be able to go and help the child. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Or the child itself might be actually able to swim to try and come over to her. It's that type of thinking.
To be fair, yeah, this kid's kind of floundering. Because there's I mean, this is a large area. There's a lot of piers, there's a lot of docks, there's a lot of ships. He may have even kind of pawed at one of the hulls for a second, because in his frantic like want to live brain set, the fact that there is not a ladder that just leads up the side of a hull doesn't necessarily compute. It's just something he could maybe grab onto. So yeah, feel free.
Charisma performance. She is very good at this. Imagine the willpower. It's the person's willpower. So I imagine on a child it'd be like willpower, what, 4 maybe?
I mean, isn't the average person have like 3?
Yeah, 4, 3 or 4, I would say. Just shrug.
I'm just opting on the low side because, child.
She got 2. She got a lot of successes.
I mean, I'm not sure how much he'd really want to ignore it, but
oh yeah, no, it's like an immediate draw. Like you look over at the person. Like a few of the sailors are probably looking over at Caroline as well, and she's like, "Come on, come here, come here." You know what I mean?
I mean, he got 2 successes, but whether or not the presence takes effect, that doesn't mean he's going to necessarily ignore her. He just won't be like ensorcelled. But hey, there is a nice lady who is calling to him, so he'll reorient and start swimming.
That's basically what she's doing. She's basically getting him out, trying to like at least direct him to the water where maybe someone a bit more able-bodied than her can reach, essentially. So she would keep calling like, "Come on, come here. It's all right. You're safe. Come on." Holding out one hand because she has a maimed hand at the minute, so she kneels down and like folds the dress under the maimed hand and holds out her good hand like, "Come on, come on."
All right, now a swim off roll. This poor kid. What the hell did I give him before? Roll up real fast. Give him 3. I mean, he did good, but Drip does better. And he, as he's kind of struggling and sputtering and probably making alarm noises at this point, he just suddenly plunks under the water again.
Oh boy. Oh, now what to do?
Note that you have aspects, so you can see a lot more clearly than these guys can. There's shadows that's dark. The water is practically inky black in the night, so you may be able to see things, but no one, these normal people are really not.
I'm going to roll perception alertness just to keep fair on exactly what I see.
2
successes.
And yeah, she's not stealthing besides staying underwater. So yeah, again, you'll see that there is a second something under there. Like you get the distinct impression of something a bit darker than the surrounding water moving up, and that is when he plunks under. Like there's clearly something that pulled him down.
And she like turns and yells at the foreman like, he's yelling at various things. I'll make a charisma expression roll to like see if anyone can. You know what I mean? It's like she sees it, but she's essentially trying to draw attention away from it. Almost that it's obviously a child. Basically, she sees that. That's a breach of the silence, so she immediately snaps into action. 3 successes, she begin to say to people who like are watching her as well. Oh, it might be some children's game or something. He may have you know how they play and they how they sputter and he should be fine. I'm sure his mother and aunt that swim all the time. It would be nothing serious. You know what I
mean? High or low, Torna?
We'll go high.
Oh, you lucky fucker. Yeah, it takes a little, explaining, but let's face it, these urchins probably pull all sorts of shit. In fact, with you pointing out that, it's some game or something, a couple of the dock workers actually elbow each other and abruptly turn their faces to the cargo they were watching before, almost expecting that this is some sort of distraction, so maybe some of the other urchins can go rooting through the barrels or the crates.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually hurry back to make sure this isn't some sort of distraction tactic to get them away from their work.
Yeah, no, she'll turn, following the shadow that has pulled the child down, then following it very carefully.
And yeah, I will do one more set of contested rolls, just again to be fair to this poor kid, sort of, not really. I mean, he puts up a good fight for a small child, but yeah, no, he stays under this time.
What is
she?
What exactly is Drip doing? Is she just like trying to drown him essentially?
Pretty much. She's just keeping a hold of the kid and keeping him pressed under the water so that he is drowning, and as he's drowning, latching on with her massive fucking jaws.
She just watches. Her mouth pressed in a thin line, quite not agitated, but she kind of watches the shadow in the water, watching it very carefully, trying to see exactly where it's going to come up next or what point in the docks is going to come up next.
Yeah, she'll see. I mean, with the aspects and everything, I'll say you do see like this fades somewhat. It gets kind of hard to follow. It's a pretty good guess that whatever it is pulling him as deep as it can.
Mm-hmm.
So as Drip presses this kid against the bottom of the fucking bank and feeds, she'll see some bubbles escape. And eventually a loss of interest. Like basically the bubbles stop. And the shadow starts moving again. It doesn't resurface.
Where exactly is it moving to? She starts following, pacing along the docks.
Initially it will actually move off a good bit. Let's see. It actually goes arrows out initially, away from the bank, like well away from the bank, like out into deeper water.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fairly likely that initially she'll lose it. So roll again to find it as it comes back.
Mm-hmm. Got that Auspex firmly fucking on. One, yeah, I got a shitload of successes. I imagine with all the perks done to me, I imagine that's a lot of.
That's a lot of successes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, initially you'll lose sight of it, which is probably extremely frustrating as it arrows like straight out away from the bank, out into deep water. But later on, especially as she's watching and she knows what she's looking for, she'll see it come back. There's a vague ripple here going in the wrong direction. There's a little bit of a dark spot there. And yeah, she'll see that darker point, that ever so slightly darker point of something under the water again.
And again, how far has this gone away from the majority of people out in the docks as well? That's what Caroline is aiming for. Like, she's hoping this thing is leading to a more secluded area, so she's following.
Oh, weirdly enough, what it'll do is it will actually slowly kind of meander its way in, almost carelessly meander its way in, and then go straight up under another area of the docks.
She follows, like, Step, step, watching, watching. Not getting too close to the ledge, but watching. Waiting for it to go somewhere a bit more secluded. Waiting until like the flow of people moving past is now empty.
Yeah, it goes we'll say up to an area of the docks that is currently under repair maybe. And
Mm-hmm.
actually goes like up under the pier almost as if it's heading straight in towards landmass, though it doesn't she doesn't hear anything coming up once it hits the bank.
Now the question is she sees it coming up under the landmass. She'll actually say out loud as she's walking, "I saw you."
Let's see if she can hear you. I don't know if there's any added difficulty for hearing it from under the water. I imagine
That's
there
a
is.
+1, I would say.
Oh. Doop, doop, doop. Still a
Yeah.
success.
So you hear noise, or at least you or something.
So there's that, and actually I will roll to see if she's even noticing that you're standing apart.
Yeah, you can roll to notice if she's seen Caroline following you. Essentially, she hasn't made herself. She hasn't made herself stealthy about it.
She just barely hears a voice where maybe she doesn't expect one. And she'll see that darkness, that just dark point in the water, kind of stop moving.
She takes a customary step back, and she'll say again, looking around, "I saw you."
That dark point kind of slowly slithers up under the pier, directly under where Caroline is standing. And perception alertness. Yeah, she hears this time the distinct rippling of something breaking water as this dark point in the water slips up beneath where it's nigh impossible to see in the dark. But right under where one of those struts is, one of the big support poles to either side of the pier is, you hear something break through the surface of the water, maybe a bit of dripping, like something is climbing or clinging to that support beam, that pole that goes down into the water, the barnacle encrusted support.
She'll say out loud, "You should be more careful. Everyone else nearly saw you too."
And she, for the moment, won't hear anything in response as Drip very carefully listens to see if anyone else is nearby. Buck ones, but still doesn't hear any other feet clomping along the boards. Not over here. And I'm not going to make you roll for it because you know that she's broken the water. You'll hear a little bit more splashing as she shifts from one pole to another. You can essentially hear something moving under the boards as she shifts from one side to the other side to a different support beam.
And I suppose if I wasn't here, they would have all saw you pulling that poor thing in the water. Just so happens that fate has almost intervened, I would say. She takes a step, just almost walking around, keeping an eye on her surroundings below her as well, in case she thinks this thing's gonna fucking try to jump at me or anything. She's ready.
Does she meander any closer to the pole that she's clinging to?
No, she almost kind of stands ready. It's like, come on, if you're gonna come out at me, come out at me. But she kind of stands there very placidly, waiting. Because if Drip does decide to do that, Caroline has a little surprise.
Nope. There's nothing makes itself visible yet. She's almost frustratingly staying completely out of sight. In fact, opting for the pair of supports further from the bank, just in case someone walking by happens to look, so they won't see a dark figure or anything like that.
I mean, if you're not going to answer me, well, then we might have a problem.
And I'm assuming that her overall tone is just very
Calm.
refined.
Very refined, very elegant. You would take from her French accent there is a sign of English in it, like an English accent.
And then finally, from just under the boards, again, very close to that one support beam, they'll trail back a voice that is somehow the accent itself, like her overall mode of speech, is perhaps well educated, but there's still something to the accent that suggests lower class. Just that like in any language, a particular twang that suggests that she talks to more, you know, dust of the earth type people, but still weirdly refined, as though through education as opposed to exposure to high class folk. Maybe if someone hadn't been yelling.
Maybe someone was trying to save a small child and then realized what was happening and kept the masquerade intact. Because they were all looking.
There's another beat of a pause.
But
and
you can thank me, I got rid of them.
let's see how good this roll goes. Let me double check my shit again.
You're rolling, Katie.
We'll find out in a second. I'm going to assume that applies to climbing as well, so
Yeah, do your shit.
I'm going to do my shit. I'm going to do it really well.
Yep.
What she hears, like, creepily enough, what Caroline hears is there's little sounds of motion, as if clambering up that pole. But instead of seeing something pull over the lip of the pier, she instead hears a kind of like hitching in the wood, as if something's digging in. And it, in a very eerie way, as if something is scuttling on the underside of the boards, like very, very abruptly scuttles its way towards you. So you can tell that whatever it is clinging to the bottom of the boards just beneath you.
She'll keep still, staring down the laneway, because all she has to know is, like, I can make it down that way. I'm fast enough. But she won't move. Won't make a motion to move. But still keeping herself very composed, almost on like saying stock still. I mean, seeing as you seem very inexperienced in the whole thing, I thought I'd lend a hand. It is very rude not to introduce yourself to somebody.
And she will still hear, in conjunction to as that it's a very eerie, very abrupt scuttling noise that ends just under her. But as it resolves into silence again, the thing's not moving. She'll hear like dripping, like just dripping water hitting the surface beneath them. Whatever it is completely out of the water and dripping down, obviously.
Again, in custom, it is very impolite not to introduce yourself.
My name is Drip.
Drip. Poignant.
Who are you?
You can call me Caroline.
There's a pause before the just kind of blunt question comes. And what clan are you, Caroline?
Now, asking so quickly. She'll almost smile to herself. It's very forward of you. Are you new? Or have you been around for a while?
There's, again, a processing silence. Still the idle drip drop of water hitting the surface beneath. A little bit of scratching, perhaps, as handholds are reset under her. And actually, I'll let you perception alertness because it would be very entertaining. So yeah, it's very dark, but particularly there are gaps in the boards and whatnot. Like we said, this area is a bit under construction, so the boards are a lot more worn. They're slowly being replaced out in this direction. They're very
Mhm.
weathered. And she will see like particularly like right around her feet because again, Drip has made a point of situating herself just under. She'll see where bits of clawed fingertips kind of bite up around the edge of the boards.
Caroline, just real quick minute sub. Keep herself a bit composed because she's like, "Ooh, nos, Jesus." Ooh. So she kind of gets 2 successes. So she keeps her face again serene and composed and very elegant.
Yeah,
For
they're reasonably normal, except that the fingers are very, very slender. The nails are a little longer. Maybe kind of instead of being terrifyingly like long, like one would expect out of a gangrel, they're kind of slender almost and bite into the wood.
Yep, Caroline again keeps herself composed. Inside, she's thinking, "Oh, Jesus, that's fucking hideous." But she kind of keeps herself rigid and keeps herself like, yes, yes, of course, yes. For Drip's case, Caroline is appearance 4. She's stunning. You know what I mean? Probably about 19, 20 you would put her at. Beneath the hand-me-down robes and all that, you get the fragrances of nobility. You know, the elegant. You can tell this woman obviously is being taken care of. You know.
And actually, with Drip this close and out of the water, I'll tell you, encounter that there's probably a faint smell of like kind of fishiness.
I imagine, with the aspects, it's quite pungent.
Oh yes.
She's like, fish. Wrinkles her nose. Like, ugh. Well, Drip, are you new? Or you've been around for a while?
I asked first.
You did, but you asked a very deliberate question.
So did you?
I just asked if you were new. Are you young or old?
Are you?
See, I was always told to take a step forward, one of her feet, that you don't lead with such questions like, what family do you belong to straight away? It's quite rude.
And she'll hear a faint tinge of amusement as they're standing out on an old, weathered, beaten up pier, or Caroline is, anyways. We're not in a court, princess.
Princess. Just smirk.
This is obviously some sort of teasing observation. It's probable that Drip can see her through the cracks in the boards, through the gaps, and see that she's holding herself all hoity-toity.
She'll actually see her holding a hand, like, and I'll give Drip a perception alertness roll.
Oh boy, let me check and see. I know any issue from the darkness, I'll just assume that it's standard diff because her merit cancels out the dark. I see all.
She is missing a hand.
Any other interesting details about the way she's standing or holding herself or her composure or...
Very composed, very elegant, she's, not nervous. You can tell she's keeping up an air of regality about her, but she is covering the hand. You can just see it's very subtly. She covers it very quickly with her dress. You know what I mean? It's all part of the, the illusion you would have to imagine. You might catch the fleeting glance that she's almost scanning the old bridge line. Maybe she's checking to make sure nobody appears. But again, her tone is not harsh or condescending. It's almost curious.
As she takes a step forward, she'll see too, maybe not hear so much because it's just a shifting hand, but she'll see that like one of those sets of fingertips disappears and then curls out a little further along in the direction she's stepped. Again, they're not appearing like it's not a full digit. She's just seeing the fingertips bite around the edges of the boards, but
And what makes you think I'm a princess?
you hold yourself like one at least.
One always must hold themselves in the proudest way, wouldn't you think? Even if they are the ugliest creature on the planet. One can only do so much for self-pride.
The
Little,
fingers disappear again,
little
and
smirk on her. There's a little smirk on her face.
yep, the fingers disappear again, and do another perception alertness. This is not sight based. This is touch based.
Okay. I feel. I hear it.
No, she feels not so much sees or hears, but feels a little bit of pressure on either side of one of her shoes as the fingers curl up right around her boot.
I have to roll willpower. I'm gonna spend it as well. I have to roll self-control. Spend a willpower though. So action doesn't happen. It's a good thing I spent it. So she record. You can actually see her like flinch a slight bit. She like tries to move the boot away, like almost flicking her boot back. Again, the shoe moves very fast, like floop, you know.
There is a weirdly like kind of a almost clicking little chuckle under the boards.
It's impolite to touch someone without asked.
It's impolite to call people ugly.
I said whether you're ugly or not. I never hinted that you were. That's assuming and judging. Especially a friend who's just helped you. It's bad business.
Who are you helping, princess? There's another idle poke right at the bottom of her shoe, this time from the other hand.
Takes a step back. You, after all those people would have seen you very, very quickly. Pulling someone right from the docks in plain view of everyone is a very reckless way of feeding. Particularly if, say, the child's body is going to now get caught in a fisher net.
A shame, perhaps you should have been more careful playing in the water.
And perhaps you should be more careful about how you feed for yourself. If someone's as observant as me, and thankfully not one of us, you could have had a real situation on your hands.
Sailors believe the damnedest things.
Oh, but sailors do, but then people start to take notice, and then they start coming asking questions, and then the questions become hunting, and then these nights, the plague, and many other things about. The last thing everyone wants is a little thing in the water being all spooky, and taking children.
You're
Now,
very condescending for a friend.
sometimes even the best of friends have to be honest with each other.
She'll
Am
go
I
silent for a moment,
am I
kind of looking
wrong?
around.
Am I wrong in my speech?
For the moment, frustratingly, there's no answer at all.
You just have to smile slowly. I mean, you could listen to me or you could not. Either way, I was merely offering a helping hand. But if you choose to poke fun and, well, make me uncomfortable, be a shame. I do like new friends.
Make you uncomfortable.
Well, I don't like things that get so reckless and put things in danger, and particularly now, just makes one uncomfortable, wouldn't you think?
You're a long way from home, princess.
Really? And with reckless feeding like that, you're not that new either. You're very new, actually. See, I normally like to take mine quiet. Nobody can hear them. Where all the privacy in the world happens. You must be very confident in your abilities. She won't sound any condescending. She sounds, again, there's no condescension in her voice. It's almost curiosity. This weird sort of curiosity in her voice.
There's again kind of an obnoxious silence as Strip is comically clutched up against the bottom of the boards and looking around, thinking, processing, perhaps trying to find a convenient point and falling somewhat short.
But then again, you know, she fold her a good hand over her maimed hand. Everything does have its tendencies to be out in the open sometimes, but then again, if you got in trouble, I would have been most worried.
So far, it looks like I've gotten in less trouble than you.
An unfortunate hunting accident. But we do regenerate. Thankfully, I've been able to keep up my illusion.
And I am full and I don't see any pitchforks.
Thanks to me.
Really?
Children often do play such silly games, don't they?
Might have been easier if one hadn't been calling attention to the child in the water.
Perhaps I did not wish to see a child being pulled in, perhaps. Perhaps sentimentality is often a good thing. Perhaps a plausible story of a mere concerned citizen merely turning to smile at the others and say, oh, it was just a child playing, silly me. Perhaps they would rely on the foolishness of women at times.
There is an involuntary kind of snort. It is a weird, wet sound, but particularly she says the foolishness of women.
You tell enough people anything and they'll believe it.
So what are you doing so far from home?
What are you doing?
I think it is very clear what I was doing.
Me, I'm living in this city.
There's a mildly coy tone. And coming to slum it down at the docks.
I like to wander. I like to see many, many different things. After all, one can experience such pleasant people after all slumming it. After all, I've now met you.
Hmm. Shame we can't meet properly. I don't think you want to go where I go.
No, unfortunately not. I don't believe that you and I will. Well, that depends. Depends on the next gathering.
Gathering?
You don't know about the gatherings?
When?
Soon, I expect. Who do you belong to?
What family are you from?
Smiles. A rose is often so sweet at night.
Is it not as bold to ask your question as mine?
I already told you what family I'm from. You grin. This big, huge grin. It's a
Should I
shame.
play offended for a good 20 minutes first?
If you wish to play offended, that's your choice. I told you where I'm from. In fact, I even just said it.
There's another. At this point, she might even get the impression it's teasing. A hand shifts. She'll feel a light press up under her boot again between one of the gaps of the boards. Like a poke at the sole of her foot, pretty much.
And if you're going to keep touching me, well, I'll just walk off. And mention to the grin. Sailor, is that? Is that a body under the water?
Oh, they won't find it here.
No, but it'll attract enough attention that this place will become almost impossible for you to hunt. Or you can not try and antagonize me, and I cannot try and antagonize you, and we can be the best of friends. Your choice.
And would they be busy looking for a body or annoyed that some silly little girl saw something in the dark?
It depends on what I tell them. After all, the silly little girl often can be the most persuasive woman.
Be careful to only emphatically wave one hand.
Just smile. Your choice, then. She begin to take a step. I've not mocked you, but yet so far that I count that as 4 insults now.
Just because mine are spoken plainly doesn't mean they're the only ones being spoken.
What have I insulted you on?
Nasrad.
She's a smile, as expected. Though surprising, I don't actually see a lot of you in water. Fascinating. She just nods to herself, like, You should learn to say something else other than Nosferatu, though. She'll whisper.
If anyone else was close enough to hear, we wouldn't be talking, would we?
Well, sometimes you have to whisper things and you never know who might be there or not might be there. It's often better just to get into the habit. For example, a rose is often sweet at night. A toiler does like their poetry.
They do seem to. And finally, she'll hear the same kind of scrambling noise, and it goes back to one of the posts, as opposed to her just dropping into the water. But she'll hear like a little bit of, quiet splishing. She lowers herself back down.
So, Drip, have you figured out what I'm from yet? Grins.
Of course.
Oh?
Well, if I hadn't, you've only just said it.
I've said it twice now. I was surprised.
But yes. I'm not stupid.
I never said you were. Just that you are obviously inexperienced with many of the lingos of our society.
Socialization is not.
I found your brood to be in fact, the most sociable from what I've seen. Sly grin.
There's more quiet musing.
But then again,
A step
Most-
at a time.
I mean, then again, you are new. I am not so old that I don't feel your pain and understand your frustrations with things. In fact, we're probably the new kids, I would imagine.
Is that so?
Shrug. Depends on your point of view of new. Who do you belong to then? Which one?
And there's just enough of a pause to be obnoxious. Romeo?
I love his lemon cakes. She just with his, oh, she loves lemon cakes.
There's another silence, but you can only imagine that Drip is looking up at the boards with this kind of perplexed look like, are you fucking serious?
They're quite to die for almost. You must give him my compliments. They are absolutely divine.
When he gets back, I will.
Such detailed texture. In fact, you wouldn't even be able to taste the lemon in some of them. It's that rich. She almost seems to go in this almost fascinated stare.
There's just this perplexed, like, but what?
Yeah, she just seems to stare off into the distance. It's almost like a perfect symphony of food, but yet is inviting you for more. I must say he's very talented.
He just muses over the absurdly well-appointed kitchen he has in a tunnel.
And the absurdity of her fucking detail about it.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, Jesus.
My sire is Alicia Delfleur. Lie. So I'm gonna roll that. Because, well, she has a certain flaw.
It's perception empathy, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is, Katie. I botch. That is blatantly a lie. Don't even need to roll.
I mean, I will just in case, because there's a chance I could have too.
It's the way she goes. You know what I mean? There's like a delay. You get the impression, and I'll give you this free because you bought. You get the impression she almost feels uncomfortable saying her sire's name. That's probably the giveaway. She feels uncomfortable.
Oh, now friends don't lie.
Let's just say the matter is complicated, but my sire is Lane Harrison.
And the information is stowed just because she hasn't met anyone. So she can't make any measured guesses on anything based on that.
Let's just say the matter's complicated. We'll leave it at that.
Complicated.
Well, I imagine yours is just as complicated, but Romeo listens very carefully.
Amusingly, like, Drip is situated down in the water and watching her up through the boards, but let's see if she can
Well, my rolling, Katie.
let's see if she can keep any thoughts on the matter to herself without making any involuntary noises. That's only one success. So feel free to P&E.
Oh. No, I don't want to do that. Or 20.
You sure?
Yes. Damn it.
So she listens very carefully. And let's see, what kind of thoughtless little noise can she make on the matter? But Romeo, and there's some attempt at kind of a dismissive little, like, wet noise, kind of the, like, you know, but it's a loaded thing. They're clearly it is complicated, but she's trying to make just a little, like, yeah, whatever sort of sound.
Caroline puts her hand up on her mouth, like, oh, you know, that type of like, my. Such telling silence, Drip.
Is silence always telling?
Depends on depends on the circumstances, but unfortunately, my dear friend, this one is incredibly telling.
What does it tell you?
It is indeed as complicated, or at least some variation of it. Mind you, though, I, I'm not saying this out of spite. I get the feeling a lot of our relationships with the people who brought us into this world are complicated in some ways. Wouldn't you think?
I imagine it must be.
Hmm.
I'll give you that the tone is kind of grudging on that.
She just nods slowly. After all, the life you had is never really the same, isn't it not? It does change you in so many ways.
I'm not even going to make you roll for the kind of. Maybe it's a creaking or like a protest of wood as her fingers kind of bite into it again. But there is definitely a cue that you've annoyed her, at least a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It does change us in such ways, she said to the Nosferatu.
I didn't mean to demean your condition. I meant that even your own perspective. I'm sorry if that came across that way. She sounds quite earnest. I meant merely to say that your own mindset even begins to change. I wasn't talking about looks. That's quite superficial. Apologies if that came across as such. Again, seems quite earnest. You can even roll a peony if you're doubting her shit.
I will. Meh. Watch me like botch it and be convinced. I do not botch it.
You get the impression she's trying to almost converse with you and trying to like. She doesn't mean it out of spite, and she really didn't intend for it to come across that way. It's more that she's trying to she's more talking about the mental aspects of it rather than the physical.
It does change things.
And how do you feel that it changed you, Drip, for better or for worse, mentally? Are you frightened or are you content?
I'm learning.
Hmm. Still not an answer, though.
The offered answers and the ones given are not mutually exclusive.
Hmm. It's an interesting point. And do you find yourself looking back on things, staring at things that you miss, wondering how it all changed and you changed some nights?
I can't look at them.
Even from the outside?
They're too far away.
I see. You weren't born here then.
And let's see how well this goes. Yeah, it's only 2 on a perception alertness. She scouts around again. And then this time it'll be with a look around to ensure that there's no one especially watching. She'll hear the nails and the fingers kind of, weirdly enough, it's as much a wet sound as a dry one, as the nails bite a little bit into the wood. But she'll hear her slither up the post, and this time it'll be a whole hand appears over the edge. And it is very, very long. Like every story she's ever heard of a witch kind of thing, those long, slender fingers. Maybe a little touch, maybe she can see a bit of the webbing between the first digits. And first one hand will come up over the edge, and then the other. And then she finally hoists herself up to where she's visible from like the shoulders up. And her face is completely dominated by like the massive eyes. Made up maybe a little bit all the more eerie by the fact that as she pokes her head up, she kind of clears them of the water, flicking a secondary set of eyelids before the first. Pokes her head up. Lips are very, very small. The nose is pretty much gone. It's almost like her face is slickened and flat, like a fish's almost. There's just no protrusion for those at all. There's just the slits leading down to her mouth. Let me, in fact, even shift this a bit. Ugh, not that. But it is a very distinctly alien face. There's very little hair still growing out from the back, and what little bit there is clings to her shoulders, and she is slick and wet. The skin is not of an especially human color anymore. It's been kind of grayed out. But all in all, it's an eerily like kind of deep sea fish look she's got going on. It's very striking. Inhuman face.
Yeah, Caroline even puts a hand on her mouth and takes just like a reactionary step back, like, oh god, you know what I mean? Like she doesn't hide it, you know what I mean?
Yup. It is. There we go. I'll use that one. Even though it's a drawing and obviously a picture of a drawing, but it's a very, very inhuman face. Even the pupils are wrong. Just every little detail that might be something you pick on or pick up on or look at to be like, no, this is just human enough that maybe if I look at this bit, it'll be fine. No, there's none of that.
Oh yeah, she even puts like her hand on her mouth, good hand on her mouth, and just takes a step back, just like not hiding it in the side. You know what I mean?
Yep. And the arms kind of cross over the edge, obviously like propped there with her shoulders hitched up, like she's taking the better part of the weight, hoisting her upper body there. Do you think I can just walk the streets and go look at it, even if it was just down there? And she points with one of those too long fingers.
I'm assuming you doesn't look at directly at Drip's face. I'm assuming you know how to hide yourself. I meant on the outside is that sometimes do you sit and watch, or where no one can see you. I did not mean to come across as condescending again. I wasn't trying to be.
The only place I can easily hide is in the water.
I see. And why such the display towards me? Again, doesn't look into Drip's face. She's like, I'm not looking at that horrific fucking sight. I'm just gonna look at this wooden floor, so old and rickety. Yes, lovely.
Shame, it's in such bad repair. We should do something about that.
Yeah.
Display. For what it's worth, she has just casually pulled herself up and only made so much of herself visible, but she hasn't made a point of doing anything particularly uncanny. It's simply the way she's put together now.
to show me what you are fully.
And the tongue kind of flicks out for a second across her lips. Not that they really need wetting. She is just slick. Not in a recently wet in the water and water's just clinging to the skin way, but it's kind of a mucusy sheen. She, in fact, makes kind of well, honestly, just kind of disgusting wet noises every time she shifts, every time she moves. In fact, if she picks up one of the hands to gesture with, there's almost like a suckering noise as she lifts it off the board. You can either see me this way or not at all.
She just nod to herself. I was just curious.
Perhaps I wanted to enlighten you as to why I can't simply sit and watch.
Just nod.
If you think a child getting lost in the current would draw attention. She kind of gestures vaguely up and down her head and shoulders. I can only imagine the uproar if I were to walk down a street or be spotted in a corner.
Well, I can imagine you wouldn't walk down the street to see the things that you want to see.
Still learning.
Nods. Well, then, I'm glad I could help you learn that sometimes hunting in plain sight is not often, though, risky. Because whether you not may believe nobody can see you, there's always someone that might spot a subtle thing. It is often better to get them in a private area, if you can. Get them to follow you, at least.
There is, well, it's hard to say if it's a skeptical look, though the secondary lids kind of shudder across her eyes again.
Sometimes an intriguing thing in the water, if you're leading them down the way, can often yield far better results than simply yakking someone out from the bay.
I was hungry. She kind of slinks a little further down, like letting more of her weight rest downwards as opposed to hoisting herself high up over the edge. A little bit more of her disappears.
And sometimes when you're hungry, you can get reckless, I understand. That's why you need to be even smarter when you're hungry. Just some friendly advice.
There's maybe a vaguely grudging tone as she sinks a little further down. Eyes shuddering and head turning again to regard just down the way. It's like she's slowly sinking as if paranoid that her outline will get spotted. Which is odd because it is very, very dark. And this area isn't even like properly lit anymore because it's in disuse and well, not being used. I thought I did very well for a first try.
You did. However, constructive criticism is always healthy.
And finally, it's a bitter thing that she's doing, but I doubt that Caroline will appreciate the difference as she takes up a bitter grin without thinking about it. She's not used to her appearance yet. The eerie thing is that, like, you know, she has these little lips and it seems like her mouth would be fairly small, but as her jaw shifts, the teeth are visible damn near up, like
well up past her cheekbones. It is hinged far, far back. Split wide. Unless you mean to get in the water and show me how to do it better.
Well then, I'll take that then as a note then to just nod to herself. And with that, Drip, I shall see you later.
Mm.
A point of note. When someone offers you advice among our people, with no charge or not looking to gain any sort of material or other gain from it, shunning them and snapping at them doesn't set you up for something when the people are looking to get something off you. Just start walking.
There's I wouldn't say it's childish because she's not especially childish in a human way, but she's definitely painfully new. There's a grudging shift of expression, and she very promptly lowers herself out of sight. Though she doesn't splash back into the water yet.
Darling just keeps walking. Like, well, fine, if you're going to be that way, well, I'm leaving. Do you know what I mean? Type walk. Step. Drip attempts to stop or say something in any shape or form.
Probably just something like kind of muttered a little like, no need to be touchy. Kind of sinks down back out of sight, gripping the pole again.
With her with her aspect, would she have heard that, Katie?
Probably.
No need to be rude as she's walking.
Frowny face.
Yeah. Caroline
Yeah,
leaves.
she lets her go. She's not going to stop her. She'll hear her slough back into the water.
And she just keeps walking, heading off into the night. Into the night.
Very well. Then you escape to Sass another day.
Mm-hmm.
And Drip finds that completely wretched, wrenched out gate under the water, and finally surfaces up in one of the tunnels, grumbling, grumpy, and, well, perhaps no more pleased with her new lifestyle than she was before. I dare say we'll just call it there.
Yeah.